Good evening, and welcome to the Wenham Select Board meeting of March 7th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. In attendance is the Chair, Gary Cheeseman.
Diane Bucco.
Peter Clay.
And this is a hybrid meeting recorded and being broadcast on HW Cam, and we'll do all the votes by roll call. One minute here while we get set up.
I'm muted.
Or people waiting to come in.
Try doing a test.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
That's
Oh, that's not better.
Try test.
Try it now.
Sounds all right.
All right, that sounds good. Ready then for the next slide. All right, Joe, any hands up for public comment?
I'm not seeing any hands.
All right, well, let's step forward then with the slides. And to Steve for the announcements.
Yep, so this is just a slide just going over the early voting hours for our local election 2023. Will be open Tuesday, March 28th from 12 to 6:30, and Wednesday the 29th, Thursday the 30th, and Monday the 3rd, 10 o'clock through 4 p.m. And this is again, we spoke about this last couple of meetings, but this is the annual census. Everyone should have received their packet in the mail from the town clerk. We recommend strongly returning as soon as possible. So this will help us keep our voter list current. Also, our housing stock that plays into things for things like grant qualification, and things like that. Oh, Roger has his hand raised.
You want to let Roger speak?
Yes, Roger?
Good evening. I just want to let the select board and Steve know that the camera does not appear to be working. There's no video feed tonight, at least so far.
We will check here with HW Cam.
Yeah, it just seems like it's like stuck on the photo. Like it's showing the black screen up there.
It's,
Stand by then for a minute.
on the Zoom. They can't see us on Zoom, but HW Cam can, right?
I know, I was thinking if they could see that.
So Roger, you're looking on Zoom, correct?
Yes, Gary, and there's a box that's titled HW Cam WTH, but it's just black.
All right.
He's just trying
Our
to take
HW
pictures.
Cam technician is taking a look.
I texted my boss, he'll get back to me, but doesn't think I can do that right now.
All right. So we are good with Zoom.
Yeah,
Is
I
the
think-
video.
HW Cam.
I think we can proceed. They
All
don't,
right.
we don't have to be seen, only heard, although it's a best practice to be seen, but it's
Right.
not a requirement.
So we'll hopefully get that text back
We're supposed to take a picture too.
and fix HW Cam. Meanwhile, we'll move ahead and announcements further.
Yep.
Yeah, annual town meeting, again, Bucher School, Saturday, April 1st, 1 PM. We are asking everyone to try to get there, 30 minutes early or so, just to get checked in. The meeting, we would like to start the meeting promptly at 1 o'clock. And it does take some time to get everybody registered and checked in. We'll be doing or potentially doing the electronic voting, so that may add a little bit of an element of additional time and during check-in. So, please arrive a little bit early.
You're starting check-in at 12 though, right?
At 12, right?
At 12, yeah.
All right, and then we are gonna be having babysitting, like in years past, 12:30 to 5 at Miles River Middle School. The information up here, if you need any additional information, please contact Julie O'Shea or Ashley Paquette, emails on the slide, or feel free to contact the select board's office, and we can direct you or answer any questions you might have. And this is just to remind all boards, committees, and the public that the open meeting law that is extended for the pandemic is set to expire at the end of the month. The Senate has passed the extension for one additional year, but it's still at the House, which is where it got hung up last year. So just notice that, come the end of the month, if we revert back to pre-pandemic open meeting laws, that, boards and committees will need to make make certain accommodations and coordinate in-person meetings. And for hybrid virtual will no longer be allowed, at least in the format that is currently allowed.
Virtual won't be allowed, hybrid would be allowed.
Yeah, but
have to be in
pre-pandemic, a majority of the board has to be in person and the chair. And the participation would only be by the board members, not the public.
So if I want to just jump in and mention this to the board, to think about whether we want to go back to open meetings in person with HWCAM, maybe not so much the Zoom as much going forward after town meeting, of course. Just something to think about. I don't know, we have a policy in place, I think, for all boards and committees that says either virtual or hybrid at this point, or in person.
Yeah, well, you can meet, right. Yep,
If
you
you-
give the choice, you can meet all in person, all virtual, or we've now opened up the hybrid option to utilize, our OWL technology.
The OWL technology, which they need to learn
For
to
some
do.
of the smaller groups, but the boards would have to, do a little training and be willing to take responsibility for the technology and operating the technology for the meeting.
But so I guess I'd just like to think about or talk about going back to meetings, inviting the public in.
Yes.
And just using HWCAM again.
On the agenda, we'll put it.
Throw it on an agenda.
Town administrators update?
Yep, just a couple things. So we just got a letter last week, or actually earlier this week, we got our Chapter 90 funding in, $153,000, so that's good. It's in line. Generally, we anticipate and plan on 150, so that's, something that you can fluctuate, although it's been pretty steady over the last few more recent years, but so that's good. $150,000 is a pretty strong number, and Rich will make good use of that. We also got a letter from the Department of Agricultural Resources commending Stephen B. Kavanaugh, our fire chief. So he's also the animal control officer, and all animal control officers that are certified in the Commonwealth have to complete and pass certain trainings every year. He completed this training and passed all the courses, and is certified as a certified animal control officer again for another year.
Congratulations, chief.
I second that.
And the other thing I want to add is our police department just went through a sergeant's promotional testing process where we outsource the process, which is consistent with many departments, and they go through a written test assessment, an interview assessment, practical real life assessment, and how you respond. We had three officers that participated in it: Connors, Phillips, Princey. Four, and Chad Labrie, and ultimately Chad Labrie topped the process and will be getting promoted to sergeant after Sergeant Machane's retirement, coming probably within the next few weeks. And with that, Officer Princey will be promoted to detective. So, thank you for everyone participating in the process.
Congratulations to those two. I know it was a very thorough process over quite a period of time, a lot of studying
Yes.
and so forth.
Yeah.
That's great. Congratulations.
That's all I have.
All right. Chair's report. I think that, Steve, we are ready to go to print with the budget, the warrant briefing book. I
Yep.
think that's going in tomorrow morning, so that long process is coming to a close, and we're wishing everybody to show up at the warrant hearing at 7 PM on the 27th, have all your questions answered at that time, so people can be prepared walking into a town meeting on the 1st.
Will that be on the website, or are we mailing them? How are we doing that?
The warrant?
The warrant.
Yeah, the warrant will go up on the website along with
Okay.
the budget documents, and it also goes in the mail, and everybody should expect it approximately 2 weeks before April 1st.
Okay.
Anything, Diane?
I do.
All right.
I do. I have three things. So Joe and I are working on some policies. We started working on a social media policy. They've been increasing the use of the social media, the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So with that said, I think we do need a policy on how to use it, who uses it, et cetera. So that's kind of in the works. Going to town council, or we're still working on it? You don't have-
We're still working on the social media policy, but it would go before town council.
So we're still working on it, but it's pretty exciting. And then we also have a citizens communication policy, which we were putting together, which we thought would help us, any select board, to communicate with our residents. It includes, obviously, the social media, keeping the website up to date, using meetings as more communication modes, and then adding some things that you need to think about and then agree to, or not agree to. One of the things I thought of, or we thought of, was having monthly meeting hours with a member of the select board, and then also doing the same thing with the town administrator. Of course, this is taking time out of your day,
Right.
so these are just things to think about. Maybe some sort of town hall quarterly newsletter that could go out maybe with the water bills and then put online, or maybe if we have an email list, you know, on the website, people sign up for getting meeting announcements, so maybe we have a website, an email list, we could send something like that out. Using HWCAM, which we started to use, but to use them maybe on a weekly basis, meetings this week, or monthly basis, things that are happening. And then I'm still working really hard on talking to newspapers to see if we can get a town newspaper. I just found out Ipswich also has a weekly newspaper. Just Ipswich. Anyway, and my third thing is just that I've been trying to meet with more residents, trying to put it out there a little bit, do little meetups with people. I had held one at Town Hall and nobody came. And then I had one set up at the library last Saturday, but it was a snow day, so I canceled that one. I did meet with the residents after that, though. But so I was gonna announce that I will be at the library this Saturday at 10:30 to see if anyone has anything to talk.
So I thought about that, and it's kind of like a ask the select board type of event.
Yeah,
And we just do it like once a month at the
Yes.
library?
the library, anywhere. The museum is available.
The
The tea
museum?
house would be available, any place in town.
Yeah,
You'd be up for that?
I would be up for that.
I like that, ask the select board. That's a good one.
You got your title there, then.
There we go. We'll add that to the policy.
Marketing guy.
Mark, yes, yeah. Peter, any items?
Well, you and I went to the graduation for our firefighters at Linfield Middle School. And, I mean, the pomp and circumstance of that event is really very cool. And I'm glad we went.
Yes, that middle school auditorium was packed full, and I think there's, probably about 40 firefighters from the various communities around. And diplomas handed out by the chiefs of the fire chiefs from each of the towns. So a very nice evening.
And he had fathers, brothers, wives,
Yep.
sisters of firefighters. It was, who were firefighters. It was great.
That's awesome.
Otherwise, I'll just put in a plug for master plan still. That we have a last few meetings in the box scheduled, one tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, right here in this room. And then we'll be closing out the first phase of establishing what Wenham looks like right now and moving into the vision phases. So we'll continue to request public participation, and most important right now is you can go to the website and do that map exercise. You can pin on the map and leave your comment there, as well as take the survey. So that should be good. Onward then.
Quick question. Can we ask Roger if he can see us now? Because I think they can see us.
Roger, we doing better?
So right now it's on the screen share, but, oh, yep, there you are,
All right.
Yay.
in living color. Good to see everyone.
Our HWCAM technician comes through again. Thank you very much. All right, over to Steve for these two.
Yep, so we had two emails of correspondence. One was a request to put all personal contracts online. So we don't, doesn't appear to be any precedent set in that, so it would have to be a policy decision for the, for the select board to be something, if you do one, would do them all. So it would be things like my contract, police chief, fire chief, deputy fire chief, deputy police chief, finance director, DPW director, would all, to be their employment and compensation packages.
Union contracts, too?
Yep, union contracts would go up there as well.
So that was a letter from somebody, a resident of the town, right?
Yep.
So I read, like, agency ROAs must, post. Examples of such records include final opinions, decisions, orders, votes from proceedings, annual reports, notice of hearings, winning bids for public contracts, awards of federal, state, and municipal government grants, minutes of open meetings, budgets, or any public record information of significant interest that the RAO deems appropriate to post. Doesn't mention employment contracts.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly don't have to, but they are public information, but, you know, it's kind of a line of, you're in public service, so, you know, everything's public and you're open, you know, all the information is open for anyone to see. But then you also, on the flip side, you wanna, you know, respect people's privacy. Generally don't go out asking, you know, at a dinner party how much you make or something like that. So it's really just some communities do, some communities don't. So it'd be a, you know, policy decision that the board could make at a later time, but I just wanted to bring up that the question by a resident did request that we do.
So you want to take that on as a policy question, Diane?
So, yep, I'll put that on the list with Joe, but my concern with doing that at this point would be hard to keep up with it. It seems
Yes.
like keeping up with the website and social media is very time-consuming. And I think adding one more thing, it would be, we could get things up there, but then they'd probably end up being old ones, and then we wouldn't remember to renew, so it's not really in our wheelhouse at the moment. But that would just be my personal thoughts, but we'll put that on the policy list.
And then this is the next one was on town hall hours. Trudy followed up with looking for a response to her comment at last week's meeting, 2 weeks ago. So in the email, I just you know, put out that the concern was our 40-hour employee going to work less than 40 hours a week, and the answer is no. They're going to continue to work 40 hours. Town hall was open 36.5 hours in both scenarios, and in both scenarios, the 40-hour-a-week people are expected to work under the direction of their supervisor, the 40 hours, if that means coming in early, staying late, you know, working night meetings, virtual meetings from home, catch up, you know, working from home. So it's you know, it's the same. It's going to be the same setup. You're still responsible for 40 hours a week, and you know, it's up to your supervisor to make sure everybody's staying true to that.
So we can point out, too, that for those that haven't heard, Town Hall opens at 8 o'clock. So maybe after you drop off the kids at school, swing by and get your work done early.
Yep. Do some
Register
business.
your dog, pay your bills, fun stuff.
All right. So who wants this motion for the consent agenda?
Oh, I move to approve the open session minutes dated 02/07/2023 and 02/14/2023, and move to approve and hold the executive session minutes dated 2/14/2023.
I second that.
Anything else? Roll call vote. Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes.
The only thing I'm going to say, the minutes that went out that are in the package, I think the first set of minutes actually has my edits on it.
Right. Yeah.
So you see the red edits.
Right. So we just have to change that to final. Catherine's got that, I know.
That's all.
All right, so tonight we have a series of briefings or presentations. The first is from Anna Sizek from Harbor Light, Maple Woods, and she'll be providing us with information on the process for Wenham residents getting into the new Maple Woods project, which I think they're looking at a construction completion early '24. So Anna, are we on?
I'm here and ready to go. Thank you, everyone.
Michelle, we'll get
Can
the
you guys hear?
slides up for you here.
Okay,
Here we go. All yours.
great. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for having me here tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna Seedzik. It's like an apple seed plus a zik. That's probably the best way to remember it. And although I do a lot of things in the community, my actual day job is working for Harbor Light Homes as the lottery agent and senior project manager. So I'm the person who's actually running the lottery for Maple Woods. I'm also responsible for our affirmative fair housing marketing plans and tenant selection plan processes. So heavily involved with the leasing and regulatory side of what happens in a lottery after the building is complete. So I think to this point, there's been a lot of information about getting Maple Woods permitted and starting construction. But what I'm here to talk to you tonight is what happens when it becomes human, when we actually get residents living in the building, and what's the best way to make that happen. So next slide, please, if you don't mind. So a little bit about Harbor Light Homes, formerly Harbor Light Community Partners. We have changed our name a little bit. We are a nonprofit community development corporation. We build and manage affordable housing for seniors, family, disabled, and homeless populations throughout Essex County. We advocate for just and equitable communities because everyone deserves a home. And that was part of the name change, is to underscore that apartments are homes, multifamily are homes, condominiums are homes. We tend to think of home meaning you have to own all four walls, and that's just not true. And so that's sort of a nod to what we're all about. Next slide, please. So we currently have properties all around the North Shore, senior housing, supportive senior housing, family and individual housing, and we actually help manage from some first-time homebuyer properties in Gloucester. That's through the Cape Ann Community Land Trust, which is a pretty interesting program for first-time homebuyers. We have a lot of things in the works, some of it local to us. We have developments in Ipswich, Hamilton, Beverly, Lynn, Gloucester, Rowley, and just this past week, we closed the lottery for Granite Street Crossing, which is a new development in Rockport. So altogether, we have a lot of things going on. Next slide, please. And this sort of gives you a sense of the places that we have developments, how many homes we are currently operating. But if you notice down there, there's a couple key numbers I want to point out to you. One of them is that we have over 400 units in the pipeline that have been permitted, that we're working towards construction, which is almost double our footprint of where we had been. The other number right above that is something really important, where it says $4 million plus of local property taxes paid. I want everyone to know that even though Harbor Light is technically a nonprofit, we do voluntarily pay all of our local property taxes. And we do that because we know part of being a good community partner is adding money to the tax rolls. And I think folks on this call know I'm quite passionate about making sure that Hamilton and Wenham look at our revenue issues. So it's really exciting to be part of a development like this that will add tax base to the town of Wenham, which I know is really important to everyone. Next slide, please. Okay, on to the part everyone's most excited about. So Maple Woods will be 45 affordable homes. They are all one-bedroom apartments, and they are all for seniors age 62 and up. So that's the first sort of key piece of information. When we say senior, there's a very specific age restriction that is 62. It is not 55. And in fact, both residents, if it's a couple, have to be over the age of 62. So that's an important consideration when applying. All of the units are built for aging in place. So strictly speaking, every single unit will facilitate a walker, a wheelchair. All of them have roll-in showers. They all have grab bars. They all have appropriately heighted switches and counters. The idea being that if you move into Maple Woods, maybe you don't need those accommodations when you're 80, but you might when you're 90, you don't have to move. You'll be able to age in place. So that's a really important feature. There are some units that have support for sensory impairment. So if someone has vision or hearing loss and they need to have visible strobe lighting, for example, or an audible alarm, that's really what a sensory unit is meant to support. We have income limits at the 30% and 60% AMI levels. And I'll go into a deep dive about what that means in a little bit. But we have two different income groupings, one of them at a slightly lower level and one of them at a pretty moderate level. So it's very much a mixed income development. That said, we also will take all mobile vouchers. So if someone has a VASH voucher, a veterans voucher, if they have an MRVP voucher, a mobile Section 8 voucher, anything like that that's been awarded by a different agency, we are happy to take them. There is a local preference for applicants who live or work in the town of Wenham, and we asked for and received the DHCD maximum allowable limit. So for 45 units, that works out to be 31 apartments. where 69% of the development is going to be set aside at initial lease up for people who already live or work in Wenham, which I know is hugely important to this community. We asked for the maximum and we were granted that maximum on behalf of the town of Wenham. So it's an exciting feature. And with that, that helps the town of Wenham meet their 10% minimum requirement on the subsidized housing inventory, which is a metric that's always been important for communities to control their housing destiny. So this is a good example of Wenham controlling its destiny, and this development will push you over the 10%. So what you see there is a rendering of what the lobby might look like, if you can imagine it. I'm not so sold on the furniture personally, but that's what the architect came up with. So you sort of have an open lobby with glass doors coming in. The rent itself will include free on-site parking, which is always important. And a really big one here is it includes all of your basic utilities: heat, water, electricity, air conditioning, septic. If you want cable TV or you want Wi-Fi or anything like that, the residents would be on their own. But for basic utilities, Harbor Light will include that in all of the rent. So this is an idea of the basic structure. If we go to the next slide, you get a little bit of a peek of what's going on up there right now. So as you can see, we are under construction. We broke ground back in December 2022, and the site is progressing. Every day there's work going on there. The site is not open to the public. So if you are super curious and just think you can walk onto the construction site, you will not be allowed to do that. But we will be orchestrating some public tours. The neighbors have had a few more tours and access people right nearby. So the site is under construction. And some of the features, as you can see there, laundry on every floor, community gardens, a community computer room, library and lounge areas. Some of the units, but not all, have porches and patios. There's going to be an on-site resident services coordinator. And what that means for Harbor Light is if you need help arranging a ride to get your groceries, a ride to get to a doctor's appointment, maybe you need some sort of physical therapy, maybe you need help with what are known as the activities of daily living, the ADLs, and we need to work to get something like element care or senior care, a visiting nurses association, something like that. If any of the residents just need help with something, whatever that something might be, that's what the on-site resident service coordinator will help do. There'll be walking trails nearby. We all know that it's a beautiful setting there, and some of that will be preserved with trails on-site on the property. It'll be brand new construction, beautiful tile bathrooms, big windows, flooring, brand new appliances, all the things you might expect. And of course, it's close to the MBTA, to downtown Wenham, and routes 97 and 128. So a lot of great amenities there. But one thing we wanted to point out, because we know it's really important to this community, are the environmental features. So it did receive a LEED Gold certification in terms of its overall construction integrity. Everything inside will be Energy Star rated. All of the fixtures and faucets will have water sense ratings to conserve water, drought-tolerant landscaping, and there will be solar panels on the roof that feed back into the grid. So from a design perspective, we've worked really hard to prioritize some of those elements because we know that they're important for the community, but also just for the common good. It's a really important value proposition for us. So next slide, please. And I'll just say, if someone has questions on the select board at any moment, feel free to interrupt and ask the way. I know I talk a lot and I talk fast. So if there's any questions you have, just let me know. This is a sample floor plan. Again, all of the units are one bedroom, so that makes it pretty easy. They're all about like this, and you get a sense of what they would look like. Closets and patios or porches, windows, pretty straightforward layout. And to the right there, you have a rendering of what that might look like from the inside. So it'll be pretty good space. 638 square feet, which is not too bad for a one-bedroom apartment. It's not a house. If you're downsizing from a 2,000 square foot house, it might feel small, but it's our assessment of the market. There are a lot of people that are looking to do just exactly that. So we're hopeful that that square footage is attractive to people. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the slide I'll spend the most time on because it tends to be the most confusing to people. So as I said, there's two different income groupings, the 30% and 60% AMI. And I'll go ahead and explain what AMI means for anyone listening. AMI stands for Area Median Income. And we are grouped in with a HUD grouping called the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy Metropolitan Service Area, or the Boston MSA. So what that means is that every year, HUD looks at the overall income for that Boston, Cambridge, Quincy MSA and calculates the area median income. From there, they set thresholds that say, well, what would the maximum income be if someone made 30% of the AMI, 60% of the AMI? So even though every single apartment is the same, there are two different income groupings and two different amounts that people would pay based on their income. So on the first line, you see there we have 16 units that are set aside for the 30% AMI. And in those units, people will pay 30% of their gross income toward the rent, regardless of what it is. So for example, let's say you make $24,000 a year on Social Security, you would pay 30% of $24,000, and that would be your portion of the rent. Maybe you have just a small pension. Maybe for some reason you don't have any other income. Maybe your Social Security is less. Maybe you only make $10,000 a year. You would pay 30% of $10,000 toward the rent. So the rent changes based on your income. And because of that, these are subsidized by Section 8 and MRVP project-based vouchers. So the ranges there, you can see the 2022 limits. You have to make less than $29,450 if you're a single person, or $33,650 if you are a couple. So that's the lower income group. From there, we have 29 units that are at the slightly higher income group. And here you'll see the range jumps quite a bit. So the low end of this rent range is $1,262, and the upper range would be $1,578. And that high number is also set by HUD. It's not an arbitrary number. It's not based on something that we decide. It's a percentage of maximum allowable rents, and that's part of the HUD calculation that's done every year. So here you see a minimum income that we have set, which is, we don't want our residents to be cost burdened. And cost burden usually means if you're spending more than 30 to 35% of your rent, of your income on rent, you're spending too much money on rent. If something happens, you get an extraordinary bill, your car breaks down, medical expenses, something else happens, you really don't have any margin there if you're paying, say, 50% of your income towards rent. So we do set a minimum income here that would allow folks to pay that rent, but not be cost burdened in terms of what they're paying. And then on the other side, you'll see the maximums here are, significantly higher than they are at the other income group. So again, for one person, $58,920 is a maximum income, and for a couple, $67,320 for a couple. So it's a pretty wide range of income. And again, those limits are coming to us from HUD. We are currently operating under the 2022 HUD limits, which will be what is in effect for this initial lottery process. Before I go on, does someone on the select board have any questions about any of this?
Peter? Diane?
No, I don't, thank you.
Then,
Program.
yes. One question, could you clarify there's no asset limits involved?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to put them in the next set of slides, but that is one of the FAQs on our website, and I was going to get to it, but I'll get to it right now. So HUD regulations, federal regulations state that there is no asset limit for subsidized housing of this kind, for tax credit housing. However, we do include two different forms of income, whichever is higher. We take the higher of annual income from income generated from assets. So that would be if you get interest or dividend payments, if you have an annuity payment, if you take regular distributions throughout the year from an IRA, we would not consider a one-time required minimum distribution. That does not count as income because it's not regular and recurring. So we would take the higher amount from that. Or let's just say you have a savings account, maybe a CD, you put some money away, but you don't really generate a lot of income from it. We would take what's known as the imputed value of that income. And the number we use to determine that is something called the federal passbook rate. The federal passbook rate right now is set for 0.06%. So mathematically, that's 0.0006, that's 3 zeros after the decimal, times whatever your assets would be. So I can tell you that you would have to have about $50 million in the bank to use the imputed value to have it make a difference. We do have to look out for that interest and dividend income, and we do have, some seniors especially who've been saving their whole lives do generate a fair amount of interest and dividend income. But again, if you look at those maximum thresholds, right, $67,000, you could have 2 people with Social Security, maybe a small former teacher's pension, and you might have an IRA or annuity that pays something into it. It's very likely you would still be below that income limit. And that's a really important detail, especially for seniors who are looking to downsize and perhaps had owned a home at one point in their lives and sold it and put the money in the bank. We would look at that money in the bank as an asset, but it would be subject to that either imputed value or the real asset income generated from that. Does that help answer that question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
That's one of the FAQs on our website. I will be adding that to the slide deck in the next version. There's a few others that I'll touch on later in the slide presentation, but that's a really big one that comes up. And it's especially important for seniors because most seniors do have some money put away. And so we don't want people to think that that will immediately disqualify you. On the home ownership, while we're paused on that, you can still apply for the lottery and own your house. Because you don't know what's going to happen, right? It's a lottery. Maybe you're number 200 on the wait list and nothing comes of it. Maybe you're awarded a unit right away. What the regulations state is you can own a home and apply for the lottery, see what happens, and then if and only if you're going through the lease-up process and you're going to be moving into the building, then you would have to sell your house. But you do not need to be you don't need to sell your house just to get into the lottery because it's your chances are variable. So some key dates to look at here. This is sort of an informal public information session. We will have 2 formal sessions at the Hamilton Wenham Public Library. These are mandated by state regulation that we do this, so we're happy to do it. One of them during the day at 11 a.m. on April 3rd, and one of them at night on June 1st. They'll also be on Zoom. So to your meeting schedule question, we will have a hybrid. We will have in-person and on Zoom for that, and it will be recorded and put onto our website if you've missed either session. So really want to help people understand what the process is. September 1st at 4 p.m., this is a hard, inflexible deadline. It is heartbreaking when we see things come through our email at 4:02 and we have to say, no, we can't take it. So September 1st, all application materials and supporting documents have to be either postmarked by September 1st, received at our office by 4 p.m. in person, or received in our email by 4 p.m. On that date. And that is a very hard deadline. We cannot accept any materials after that. So we strongly encourage people to apply as soon as possible in case you've missed something, right? Maybe there's something that pops out in the bank account that we need to follow up on. If we don't have time to do that, and you get past 4 o'clock on September 1st, we can no longer accept materials. So it's really sad when we have to say no to people for sort of a technicality, for lack of a better word, something that had they only applied a week earlier, or in this case months earlier, we could have managed. So the lottery itself is going to take place on October 3rd, again at the library in that hybrid format. You do not need to attend the lottery to participate. So if you're working or you're busy, or I don't know, the Red Sox are in the playoffs and that's the World Series, you don't have to attend to participate. And then as soon as that closes, we'll start what's known as the lease-up period, which is where we look at the winners, so to speak, and we start calling people, further income verification. It gets really serious after that. And then we are looking at this moment, a projected occupancy of early 2024. I almost put a little asterisk next to this because it's really important for the public to know there's a few variables outside of our control right now that could radically affect this date. The biggest one is electrical switchgear. So for anyone who's doing anything in construction right now, electrical parts are very hard to get. There is a long process. We've been advised by National Grid, who's providing the transformer and all the hookups, but also Siemens, who's doing the actual switchgear, that we might be facing as much as a 2-month delay on those parts. We are trying to get a firm commitment from them. We potentially might have to leverage some political capital. We might ask the select board to call your elected representatives and see if there's any way that we could try to, get a commitment on that. But if there's anything that's going to delay the occupancy, it will be electrical switchgear or possibly the elevator. That's the other pieces of the buildings that are hard to get right now. Before I move on to the actual lottery part, any other questions about any of that?
One, where can people get assistance in filling out the paperwork?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. You can always come to our office or call me. I'm happy to walk you through it. I've also been speaking with Jim Reynolds about having some sessions at the COA for folks to come in person if they have questions about how to do it. But at the end of the presentation, I'll have my work contact information. And if people do have questions, you can just call me or send me an email. We can set up an appointment. You can always come in person. But for people who might not be able to do that, I would like to have some sessions set up with Jim at the COA. And he and I have already been talking about that.
Thank you.
We can host something at Town Hall too, if you want. I mean, anything's possible. We're happy to do that to help get people over the finish line. Ready for the next slide?
Ready?
But wait, there's more? Okay, so let's talk about the lottery process. And this is all very regimented by the state. It sounds a little finicky, and that is true. It is a little finicky. So once we get to the point of all the applications are in, it is past 4 o'clock, we have closed the lottery, and we know who we're gonna be in our pools. Everyone will be divided into 2 pools. So the first one is that local pool, which again is for applicants who live or work in the town of Wenham. That's the local pool. And people will have to show that either by having a Wenham mailing address, but let's say you have a senior who works in town but doesn't live in town. I would just need an explanation of what is your connection to Wenham. So it's pretty straightforward. Those are really the only 2 criteria. If this was family housing, we would also have the ability for anyone who had children in the public schools would also be given local preference. But since this is senior only, age restricted, it really is limited to people who live or work in the town of Wenham. So that's your local pool. And then you have your open pool, which is everybody in the entire world, including all the people who have that Wenham local preference. So if you think of it that way, the local pool is actually in 2 places, and they will get drawn twice. And this is probably the hardest part for people to understand. So everyone will be given a unique number. So just for argument's sake, Gary, I'll choose you. Let's say Gary Cheeseman is in the lottery. When we pull that number out of the bucket, we're not going to shout out, Gary Cheeseman won the lottery. How very, personal and revealing for people. So the first thing that happens is everyone's assigned a unique number that you would know and I would know, but the person drawing will not know, and I will not be the person drawing. So that's the first thing that we do is everyone gets their number. We'll draw the local pool start to finish. So if you're in the local pool, you will get pulled. What matters is the order that you're pulled in. So everyone will get drawn at some point. It's just a question of where you are in the line. Then we'll do exactly the same thing for the open pool. And again, that also includes the local applicants as well. Then from there, we start awarding. So, and that is all that happens at the lottery. I should maybe put a pause there. All the lottery is the drawing of numbers from a bucket. After that, we will say goodnight to everyone, and that's all that happens that night. The next day, we go back to the office and we start looking at how people's preferences stack up against the units. And in this lottery, it's fairly straightforward. We have some units that are set aside for ADA or sensory preference. So if you're a person who has an ADA preference, who absolutely must have a wheelchair accessible unit, that would be flagged on your application. And we would look first at awarding those 4 units that are designated as such. After that, we would award all the local preference units in the order of the local draw up to that maximum of 31. And then at the end of that, whatever units are remaining, we would award those based to people in the open pool draw order, which again could include people from the local pool as well. From there, once we get to the point where the entire building is full, all 45 units, we will have a wait list, and the wait list will be created from the open pool draw order. So I cannot express to people enough how important it is to get into this lottery, because what we will expect to happen and is happening all across the region is the lottery is full of hundreds and hundreds of applicants. So for argument's sake, let's say we have on September 1st at 4 o'clock, let's say we have 500 people that are in this lottery. The very next day, we could get an application from someone who meets all the criteria, lifelong Wenham resident, perfectly suitable on the income, needs an ADA unit, everything. Because they've missed the lottery deadline, they will automatically be number 501 no matter what the application says. So from there, the build out for the wait list will start to take years upon years. And in all of our senior properties, the current wait lists are between 2 to 5 years. For the family lottery ran it in Beverly last year for 38 units. We currently have almost 800 people that have applied. Some of them were in the lottery, many of them were not. And in the lottery we just closed at Granite Street, we had 445 applicants for 23 units. So you can see how the wait list gets very big very quickly. So getting into the lottery is your best chance of getting onto that wait list for Maple Woods anytime really in the next, I would say 5 years as a realistic measure. So I'm going to plant that seed and keep saying it. We'll go from the open pool list, and then anyone who applies after the lottery, as I said, will be accepted on a first come, first served basis and added to the end of the open pool draw order. Are there any questions about this part of the slide?
No, I think it's just that very important that the local preference is just a one-time thing, right?
It's just a one-time thing. State regulation allows us to apply it at the initial lease up, but once this building is leased for the first time, the local preference falls away. And that's why that open pool draw order is what remains. So the good thing about local preference is you have it in the beginning, and then all of the local applicants are also in that open pool. But to your point, Gary, that open pool would include everyone moving forward long-term. So local preference is only for the initial lease up, and that's per DHCD regulation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. I think we're getting close to the end. Yes. Okay. So applications, they are available online. You can download one. You can email us. We'll send you one. You can pick them up in person at our office, or we have 3 locations in town that you can go physically get an application. They're available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, as are all of our marketing materials. And again, that is a state regulatory compliance. You have to make everything accessible for a variety of applicants. So they are there. To Steve and to Joe or Margaret, if anyone needs more, if you ever run out, just let me know and I will happily deliver more to you at any time. You do not have to photocopy them. And there on that last slide are my work contact information. If people have any questions, just give me a call. I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Anna. Any questions, Peter?
No, it's a great program.
None from me.
None. Yeah, so I think as Anna said several times, the most important date is to get it complete by the 1 September deadline, and recognize that, this was years in the making to get this project going and completed. So, as far as the town of Wenham's concerned, this is probably the one great time to get into this sort of housing in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we're very grateful to the town of Wenham and the allocations that have been given. I know there's one last bit on the warrant for town meeting on the 1st, but this has been a very long time coming, and we're so excited to actually see it happening. And we know how great the need is for housing all across the region of every kind: senior housing, family housing, age restricted, not age restricted. We can't build enough of it to meet the need. So we're happy to have it here. If you want, Gary, I can go through some of the FAQs now, or if you want to move on your agenda. I don't know how much I was budgeted for, but there are some quick FAQs on our website if people have other simple questions. Can I have 2 more minutes, or do you want to move on?
Sure, go ahead with the FAQs.
Okay, so the first one we talked about are single applicants under age 62 eligible, or couples, and again, the answer is no. Everyone has to be 62. This includes people who might have a disability. So sometimes you see something that's called a disability exception to an age restriction. This development does not have that. So bottom line is, if you are not 62 by the day of the lottery, that's an important distinction, the day of the lottery, you would not be eligible. Another common question is there anything other than the 1 bedrooms? The answer is no. There are only 1 bedrooms at this location. Another important question is, are pets allowed? Are pets allowed? And this is where, in the world of housing, there are 3 types of animals. There are pets, there are service animals, and there are emotional support animals. So strictly speaking, pets are not allowed, but by federal regulation and state regulation, service animals or emotional support animals are allowed. That's a common question. We've talked a little bit about why multiple rents with the same things. This is a question that comes up a lot. What if someone in your household has no income of any kind? None? What you have to submit with part of your application is called a certification of zero income, where you say, I, Anna Siedzik, declare under penalty of perjury, I have no income, nothing whatsoever. It does come up from time to time. It's not super common, but it does come up. We talked about the asset limit. The explanation I gave verbally is on our website, and it's really important, crucial information. And then the last FAQ, it's on our website, is about if you still own your house, can you still apply? And the answer is yes, and you can wait and see what happens. So that concludes my formal remarks for tonight, but there will be 2 more of those public information sessions. And again, I'm just a phone call or an email away if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Anna. Anything else from the select board? Steve, anything?
Nope. Great.
So very thorough, and as we said, hope Wenham residents take a chance on this, and one-time good deal.
We've tried our best to make it as attractive as possible. And again, getting that local preference from the state was a big deal. We had to apply for it. They scrutinized it. I think Margaret was part of some of those conversations, to get to that local preference. So we're really happy that we're able to deliver that. But yes, to your point, Gary, this is the moment. If you've ever thought about wanting affordable housing in Wenham as a senior, this is perhaps a golden opportunity that's not going to come around again for a very long time.
All right. Thank you, Anna. Good night.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Michelle, the next one is
Human Rights Committee.
Human Rights Committee. So we welcome Martha Brennan from the Human Rights Committee, who will update us on events in the near term through June.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me tonight. I wanted to just give a quick update on a couple of things that are coming up. The first is some sessions of active bystander training. This is something that both our committee and the Hamilton Human Rights Committee and the private Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Committee have been working on basically since we've been formed, to bring this kind of training, which gives people some real hands-on and real doable things that they'll walk away from this training with 5 things that they can do if they're ever in a situation where they're witnessing somebody being harassed, or someone using an inappropriate joke, or any kind of harassment or discrimination. So these are, we've looked at various vendors over the past 18 months, and we were very fortunate to find a local woman from Ipswich, who is actually a member of the Ipswich Human Rights Committee, who does this professionally, and so she's offering us these trainings for our 2 towns, which we're really excited about. So the first one is going to be March 23rd. It's going to be at the community house from 7 to 9. There's no cost, and you don't have to pre-register. The second one is going to be on Zoom for people who don't want to do it in person on March 30th. That one you do have to pre-register for, just so that you'll get the link. And then the third one is on April 29th. That one's going to be at the library in the morning. So we're really trying to hit a variety of times so we can get a variety of constituents that might be interested. So that's April 29th, 10:30 to 12:30 at the library. So we're excited about that. This is also something that we've worked with Eric Tracy on bringing to the schools. So we're hoping that a lot of school parents and students might come to these sessions. So that's bystander training. The second, continuing for this will be our third year. We just wanted to let you know that we're planning on doing the Pride flag raising event on June 1st. We don't have a lot of details on that, but I just kind of wanted you to pencil it into your calendars. And we'll be back in a subsequent meeting with more details, but we are going to involve the other Wenham, like last year we had the museum and the First Church and the Tea House and Nazir's, so it was really a nice little community event, so we're hoping to replicate that. And then the third thing is Juneteenth, and this is actually a question to the select board. Last year we had the North Shore Juneteenth group come and help us do our ceremony. And so I thought it was a great ceremony. It was disappointing that there weren't more people there. And so in strategizing with Ann Brady from the Hamilton Human Rights Committee, we thought about doing is having a combined ceremony. We'd still put a flag up here, but they would actually host it this year. And then in subsequent years, we would alternate. So we did it last year. They would do it this year. We would do it next year. And I just wanted to see if that was something that you'd be interested in and we can pursue it. Seemed to make sense that we might get more people at an event that was co-sponsored by the two towns, but really I'm throwing it out there to get some feedback from you.
Makes sense to me.
Peter says yes. Diane?
Agreed.
Gary says yes.
Okay, all right, so we'll get back to you on that. We'd still, like I said, we'd still want to raise a flag here, but it doesn't have to be that could just go up as a matter of course, as opposed to, doing a big event. And then the fourth thing, I wanted to circle back on Indigenous Peoples Day, because as you remember, we had come to the select board a few times on Indigenous land acknowledgement when we were first formed. But we had been trying to think about re-engaging on that when a local resident who's done a lot of historical research has actually come up with a whole mini book on Indigenous people who've lived in Wenham. And there's a lot of sites around town that we thought we might even be able to put into like a little bit of a walking tour. Or some kind of way to like engage the town on people that lived here before Wenham was incorporated. So I thought it would be a great thing if we could maybe think about doing that for Indigenous Peoples Day in 2023. So I don't know if anybody had gone to the Wenham Museum had a brown bag lunch session on enslaved people from Wenham. So this is slightly different. That was also a great presentation and very interesting, but this is about people, Indigenous people that lived here. We all know about Masconomet's grave in Hamilton, but there are actually some very interesting sites in Wenham that we could think about trying to publicize.
I think we look forward to your trail tour.
Yeah, I think so too.
What time of year is that? When would you be thinking, the summer?
No, we would try to make it part of Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly known as Columbus Day.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So hopefully a nice, crisp October day, and there's a couple sites around Wenham Lake. It's really interesting though once you start digging into these things, and it come up because I had been at an event in Gloucester, and they're getting ready to celebrate their 400th anniversary. But they're making a real effort to look at who was there before those 400 years and including them in part of the celebration. They're actually calling it now the 400 plus. So given that we just had an anniversary, it kind of made sense to start thinking about these things. So I thought, I'm kind of a history geek, so I thought it was great. But I think it'll add to the history of Wenham if more people know about it.
Sounds great. We look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Any questions, Peter or Diane?
No, I think it's great.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for the update, Martha. And
Right. You're
you
welcome.
might just give yourself a pitch. So for the public, when does the Human Rights Committee meeting usually meet?
We meet the first Monday of the month at 6 o'clock on Zoom right now. We're going to have to scramble if we're going to have to meet in person because everybody loves meeting on Zoom. So I'm going to have to follow up with the town administrator, figure out what the rules are on that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Martha.
All right, thanks so much.
And next up this evening is Kate Mallory, our Conservation Coordinator, that's bringing to us the tree policy that she's been working on for quite extensively, and I know has been coordinating with the Open Space and Conservation Commissions as well. So Kate is invited in? All right.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi,
All-
everybody. Thank you
all
so much
yours.
for having me tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So tonight I'm here really to ask the select board to adopt the Wenham tree protection policy. And the policy came in, I really put it together in two basic parts. So I thought I'd just explain it a little bit. I think you got it in your packets. Michelle, can you just show the policy? Is it in the packet or no? There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. So basically the first part of it is regarding the public shade trees. So I kind of just wanted to say what a public shade tree is so everybody knows. According to Mass General Law, a public shade tree is all trees within a public right of way or on the boundaries thereof, including trees planted upon adjoining land at a distance not exceeding 20 feet. So basically what a public shade tree is, trees that are along the street and 20 feet into a certain property. So that's what we're talking about in this first part. And so Mass General Law already protects these trees. They give overseeing power to the tree warden. We have a fantastic tree warden in Wenham. His name is Win Mullery. So it's really perfect. This tree policy adds protection to these trees and develops parameters for removals of these trees. And the plan also is for planting new trees in a sustainable way geared towards climate resiliency. So I've been in front of you guys before. We've talked about trees. Why do we care about trees? And so I'll just say it again. We care about trees because they make Wenham more climate resilient. So you can see right here on the screen, they conserve energy, improve air quality, reduce noise pollution, provide habitat for wildlife. And actually, if you look at F, this is something that's really cool. Phil Colarusso, who is our Conservation Commission chair, actually just told me this, so I added this into the policy. They provide critical habitat for amphibians, such as salamanders and wood frogs. And so we have lots of vernal pools in Wenham. Wenham has a lot of wetlands as well, and in these wetlands there are some vernal pools. The trees that are around these pools are so important to amphibians, and so a lot of these amphibians are on the state's endangered species list. Without protecting trees around these vernal pools, they would cease to exist in Wenham. So trees are really important. My favorite is they reduce stormwater runoff, and I think everybody's favorite is probably that these trees increase property values. So that's kind of why we're doing this. Michelle, would you go down to page 3, please? There we go, right there. Thank you so much. So the plan outlines and makes a fair and consistent process for tree removal. And so everybody is treated the same across the board in the town. There are 5 qualities that our tree warden would look for in giving permission to remove one of these shade trees. And so it would be the tree is assessed as dead, dangerous, it's an emergency, the tree is starting to fall down, the roots are coming up, the tree poses a significant negative impact on an existing structure, and removing the tree would help existing trees on the property. So those are the 5 things that our tree warden will be looking at. The applicant would have to appear at a public hearing with the tree warden, and they would determine if the tree can be removed. Also, other commissions could be involved in this, such as the Planning or the Conservation Commission. The Planning Commission would be involved if the tree is along a scenic road, and the Conservation Commission would be involved if it is within conservation jurisdiction. That hearing could be all together, so they don't need separate hearings. So that's kind of the first part of this policy, and the second part is the Heritage Tree Program part, which I know I've presented to you guys before. Part of the part of the policy that conserves our most important trees is the heritage tree part of it. It also implements a yearly tree planting plan towards climate resiliency. Again, we're really focusing on climate resiliency here. There are 5 parts to this program. Michelle, can you go down to page 4 now, please? We can kind of show this section. Awesome, perfect. Thank you so much. So the first part is designated these heritage trees. All right. So once a tree gets nominated, a tree can be on private property and a homeowner wants to nominate their tree. A tree could be one of these shade trees. It could be on public property. Once the tree is nominated, you as the select board would determine if it is designated worthy. The tree would have to be rare in species, unique in size, of a particular age. So we'd want to make sure the tree was old. So any one of these categories would designate as a heritage tree or have historical significance. We actually have Albie Dodge, when Dodge's father was a tree warden for many years in Wenham, and he has a book, and in the book there's a lot of historical significant trees in town that would be great to be nominated for one of these heritage trees, and we have it documented already in this book. And so if a tree is designated as an important heritage tree, the tree is protected. It cannot be even trimmed without the consent of the town tree warden, the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, and the Select Board. So that would be for the first part of the program. Going along with that is there needs to be an educational piece to this for the public. And so what I thought we could do is I could create a story map using ArcGIS where we can have these trees plotted on a map. You can click on the area, you can see a picture of the tree, information about the tree, why was the tree nominated, and you could even have like little tours of the heritage trees in town. And so I'm actually looking for volunteers if anybody knows anybody who'd like to go out on the field with me and get that work done. Third on this list is to maintain a town-wide tree policy. And so first we have to implement it and then maintain it and update it as needed. You know, times change, so we need to make sure that we've got, we're constantly updating and looking at ways things are working or not working. The fourth part is to become a Tree City USA town. And so this is through the Arbor Day Foundation. This is a very prestigious designation for a town to have. We qualify, the only thing we're missing is this public tree policy. And so if we can pass this tonight, I can apply for this designation and hopefully we would become a Tree USA town. If we get this, it's also helpful when we apply for grants. We get a couple more points for being one of these towns. This is actually something really exciting that Mr. Cheeseman and I are working on, working with the Food Project on Larch Row. They have a farm there, and it is town conservation property. And so we are working for this Arbor Day to have a celebration there where the community comes and plants fruit trees on the property. They're maintained by the Food Project, the farm, but town citizens can come in, grab an apple, and take a walk. It's a beautiful property. So opening that up to citizens, and this would just be this year's Arbor Day celebration. Every year we do something different. And lastly, this is my favorite. Implement a yearly tree planting plan by the tree warden with input from the conservation coordinator and the DPW director, utilizing green infrastructure. Again, for our climate resiliency, we have to be looking towards green infrastructure. So working with the DPW director, saying, hey, where are you doing infrastructure upgrades next year, the year after that? And then the conservation coordinator and the tree warden working together with the DPW director saying, hey, these are areas where we could put in some of these green infrastructure systems that would help our watershed in water quality in town and help flooding in town. So some other areas, the Bucher School, as we all know, there's an area that always floods there. That's a great place. I've looked at the soils. It's a great place to put in some sort of green infrastructure system. West Wenham Park, we are very grateful. We just received some more funding through the CPC committee, and we are moving forward with upgrading that park. It's a great opportunity to have some green infrastructure there. The West Wenham Swamp, I've talked about this before. This is where our water is coming from, and so it's very important to protect that area, and another area where green infrastructure can be utilized. So even looking at programs where residents can implement rain gardens in their private property to help our watershed and stop flooding. So those are the two basic sections of the plan. I know you all got the plan beforehand and you read it. I know I've presented a few times to you guys, so I just wanted this last time to take 2 more seconds just to thank you 3 for all your conservation efforts for the town. You know, Ms. Bucco, you have, I think, shared every single one of my social media posts for conservation, and I appreciate that so much. It really helps educate the public and get the word out. And Mr. Clay, your clean water efforts working with the water department and specifically with the state, that is so important to the Ipswich watershed, which we're in. So thank you so much. And I especially want to thank Gary, Mr. Cheeseman, for his ongoing support. This whole plan started because Gary came into my office one day and said, hey, have you ever heard of this heritage program that's going on in Portland, Oregon? And the more I saw what they were doing and thought of what Wenham's needs were, that's really how this came along. So thank you, Mr. Cheeseman, for your encouragement and your support with this.
Well, thank you, Kate, for
have any questions?
for all the information. Peter, any questions?
No, do we have to vote on this to accept it?
Yes, we can. Diane, questions?
I don't have any questions either. That
All
was a
right.
wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, guys.
So, Diane, do you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Policy guru?
Sure. Policy guru. I move that the Wenham Select Board, approve, adopt the heritage tree, is that what we're calling?
The Wenham.
Wenham Tree Protection Policy.
Policy as given to us on March 7th, 2023 by Kate.
Second?
Any further discussion?
No.
If not, roll call vote. Peter?
Yes?
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. Thank you, Kate. Now,
Exciting. I
Wenham
have-
now has a tree policy, and tomorrow you can start the paperwork for Tree City USA.
I do
Sounds
have a quick
good. Thank you
question.
so much.
I do have a quick question, Kate. When is Arbor Day?
It is February, no, not February, April 28th.
April 28th?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're working with them now to try to get this going. So it's pretty exciting.
Sounds like a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you can come. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And now we have Rich. So Rich Souza, our DPW director, is up next. And a subject that a lot of people are very interested in is the paving plan for FY24. So we'll put the slides up. Rich, good evening. It's all
Good evening.
yours.
Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much for having me. What we have here is this presentation is basically first slide is the paving plan for FY24, and then the subsequent slides will be ones you've seen before regarding capital requests for 24. Just more or less to sort of point out, I guess, the highlights of this slide. The 95,000 is what we're requesting for the in the operating budget. So that's aside from any Chapter 90 funds. As Steve mentioned, we received notification that we're basically on course like we were last year. It's about around the 153,000. So very, very good news in the sense where I can manage what we have and the roads we need to get done with that money. Obviously, more money would always be helpful, but at this point, where you have a good plan and we'll be able to execute it with the funds that we have. I don't know if basically the roads I want to do under Chapter 90 are Howard, Great Pond, and Perkins. And the funds that we'd have with the operating budget are Lois, Grover, Fairview, Stage Hill Road, and Linden Street. Brief, I guess, description for the ones that we're going to do on the capital. These are shorter roads that do not qualify for Chapter 90 funding. It has to be 500 feet or more to qualify. And they're also roads that are sort of on the borders, of Hamilton and Beverly. Basically, roads that probably were not addressed due to their location, but they've got to a point where their road surface rating is pretty low, where I want to manage these roads, get them resurfaced, and sort of have a fresh start with these sort of outskirt roads. Fairview, I included that in this year, and that's due to I'd like to get that road done, and we'd be off of it by the time the DOT comes to do any work on 1A for the light project. So I figured sort of get that one done this year, and they could come and do their construction project in the future. Any questions on the list?
Peter, Diane?
I have a quick question. Fairview, you just mentioned, I think that there's some water issues that have been brought up with the Route 1A
Yes.
situation.
So-
So would that fix what you're going to do? Would that help to fix that?
No. The road paving, no. The resident, I've worked with that resident. I met with him a couple times. I know the DOT did respond to him, so I think it's not fully resolved. I think he may not be happy with what the answer was given to him.
Okay.
So
I just thought maybe we could help.
yeah, the road, this problem, basically the resurfacing would not change, I guess, location of drainage that's in that area.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Other notes I want to discuss is the first one on to the right of this slide. Very good news. As everybody's aware, Topsfield Road is going to be done by the DOT. They're hoping by July. They sent me their initial scope of work and cost estimate. I noticed a couple discrepancies, so they're working on reviewing and finalizing that. But I will say the number that they provided was just over $750,000 it's going to cost them to do that road. The discrepancies I identified will add to that cost. So, it could be upwards of $800,000 that the state is going to fund, and that being a over 2 mile road is a significant project that it would take the town years to save up Chapter 90 money, save up operating money, and be able to actually perform that project. So really great news in the sense that that's getting done. The other bullet in the note is the ARPA funds for the ramp and sidewalk work. That was $60,000 has been approved. So I'm going to continue doing ramp and sidewalk work. I have the locations for that work, which will be done, I'm hoping, in April. It's at Bruce and Arbor Street, Perkins and Main, Linden and Main, and then there's 3 ramps at the Porter Foster intersection that we're going to do. So again, great use of funding that has become available that again would take just more time and funds away from our operating in Chapter 90. So we're able to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So that's really great.
Hey, Rich,
Yeah.
Peter Clay, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Did you guys do anything or say anything or request anything of MassDOT or that prompted them to?
Yes. So, Bill Tyack, previous director, spent time with, I believe it was Brad Hill at that point. So he was working with Brad, prior to me arriving, and that was one of the projects that Bill said that he'd been working on, and said I should sort of keep beating that drum. So when I came on, I reached out to Representative Balisto, I think that's the correct name.
Yep.
And a few months later, I had a couple, I guess, more or less cold calls and emails into her. And we actually got notification probably less than a year ago, but not too long after I'd been here, that that project was picked for FY23. So that's why the reason why their schedule is they're trying to get this job done before FY23 is over, because then they have a whole new list for FY24. So definitely Bill's efforts and my continuous, bothering them, I think sort of push it over, and that's how that Wenham became, I guess, the top of the list for, on the list for 23.
Yes, we certainly owe a thank you to both Brad Hill and Jamie Basido to push for this on behalf of
Definitely.
town.
And now you have to
Definitely.
deal with Jerry Paracella and Sally Cairns.
Right, correct.
That would have been
Yeah.
Sally Cairns' project.
Yeah, and and again, I brought up the Route 1A light project. It's more funds that the town's receiving, and just projects that the DOT basically runs. I'll just be for that project. I'm just going to be a liaison project manager really for the town. It's not my contractors, are Mass DOT contractors, so it's really their efforts to actually conduct that work.
So where does that project stand, by the way? The 1A?
Yep. All of the public sessions are complete, and they are in they're finishing design. Once design's finished, then that design package we use to put out for bid, so state contractors can bid on the project. So we're still a good year away, I think, before we have, or before the DOT has contracts in place with the contractors to actually perform the work, and then we'll have a much better idea of when that work will be actually executed.
Will we have any chance or input on the site design?
I believe the
can answer
town
that
has
one.
had all
So-
the opportunity they've had
Yeah,
to this
so
point.
the site design, as you understand, pretty much complete. We had the public hearing, last fall? Lots of questions to the DOT reps. They responded to the town, but essentially the design is fixed, and it is a standard Mass DOT design, not really Wenham inputs.
That's brutal. Okay.
Well, I mean, they early on they did, when the public was able to have their input, there was, I guess, edits. There were considerations made by the DOT that they put into this design. So, Wenham has had multiple chances to, to I guess, state their questions or what they would like to see from that project.
Any questions, Diane?
No, not yet.
Thank you, Rich, for the paving plan, but we're also going to look at some trucks here.
Yes. So this next slide is basically general guidelines. There's not necessarily industry guidelines, for municipalities, and that's due to the equipment usage in New England is much different than it is in Florida, Texas. So this is, talking with my counterparts, basically timeframes that I've used in the past. This is a good, again, general guideline to use when, considering replacing equipment. That's really all this is meant to be. It at least puts, timeframes for people to see and, I guess, try to understand. So, not much more to really say about this other than, there are general considerations that, we use, when we start looking at the cost to actually replace a vehicle versus, repair. We can go to the next slide, Michelle, if unless there's any questions. So first up is a 2010 Silverado pickup. This, again, you've seen these slides previously at other meetings, so nothing new other than this is a 13-year-old vehicle now. There's beginning to be rust on the frame. I know there's been continued exhaust issues with this, so it's really getting to a point where for a truck with, I think it's over 100,000 now, that's basically, it's out every single day. It plows in the winter. It, helps cut grass, during spring, summer. So a very, very utilized vehicle that is past its life expectancy. So we have a new in-kind, trucks that we're gonna purchase. So that's this one. If there's any questions, we could go on to the next. So this one would be a new addition to the fleet. This is a Trailblazer that I would use as, more or less on the admin side. There, within the fleet, we have one extra or one spare pickup truck that is offered to me, although we pretty much use it daily with the crew. Again, that one gets a plow for the winter. It also, exactly just like I mentioned with that other pickup, where it's helping out with any mowing operations during spring, summer. That's beginning to get up in mileage. Reliability is an issue with that one, but it still has a few more years, so we wouldn't need to replace that anytime soon. But for the price of this and the use that it'll get, as in being a straight admin vehicle, I think I'll be able to get 10 to 15 years out of a vehicle like this. So definitely will be utilized by myself daily. For basically, it would be used on any emergency responses that occur. It'd be used during winter and snow and ice operations, but obviously would not have a plow on it, so the life will extend further than the vehicles that we use and wear and tear every day. If there's no questions on this one, we could go to the next. So it's funny, during the presentation to FinCom, Kate presented prior to me, and she talked about the trees that are in town and the amount of work that we need to do. This is a reflection. This piece of equipment is a reflection of the amount of tree work that Wenham does for a small town. Obviously, there's a lot of trees. So our current chipper is the same make and model. It's actually an XP Bandit 200. We use that piece often. We have many limb calls, branch calls, that we're able to respond to with a chipper and remove, those limbs and branches off the roadways. They're able to chip them up. So it seems like the older the tree population gets, the more calls we get. I've noticed, we get a lot more of these ice and sleet events where it weighs more than light fluffy snow. So the amount of trees and limbs and trees that come down during those events, this is a tool that it's absolutely necessary to have. So again, the model we have is a 98. So safety functions have come extremely far from then. So that will also add, more of a safety element to the work that's done when we're, responding to those types of calls. Any questions on that? We can move to the next. And this is our track list. This would just be a lease payment. It's year 3 of 5. So we have two more payments to make before we own this vehicle. But this is a great piece of equipment. Talking about how our pickup trucks plow for us during the winter, and help with grass mowing during the summer. This is there's no exception as well. This one will in the springtime. On it right now, it's tough to see the picture, but that's actually a boom flail, which that does roadside cutting or pushing back of overgrowth. It also comes with, we also own a mower deck attachment. We own a snowblower attachment, a snow plow attachment, and I'm sure I'm missing one as well. But this vehicle or piece of equipment is utilized year round. Very, very versatile. It's a great piece of machinery. So we already have it, but a couple more years and we'll own it. And this is year 3 of that payment.
Is that the list, Michelle?
Yes, I believe.
I believe that is,
All right.
yep.
All right, any questions, Peter?
I really don't want to bring this up, Rich, but
Yep.
so you used to clean the sidewalks with a vehicle that did have tracks. Is that right?
With tracks, not the wheels.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the second trackless we've owned. I don't know if that actually had tracks.
Well,
We do own a
I'm pretty
Bobcat
sure,
skid steer that has tracks, but
I'm pretty sure
this-
it used to be that it had tracks, and the difference
Okay.
between the track and the trackless is that this digs up the grass alongside the sidewalks. So if you walk down past my house on Arbor, you would see where big chunks of dirt have been pulled out of the ground.
so I don't think that would be the wheels or the tires on this. I think it would be a plow issue where the operator is going, a little too far to the left or to the right when plowing. The snowblower that we have does a great job, where obviously that's a fixed width.
So I'm 14 Arbor. Just park in my driveway and just walk north and south on the sidewalk, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I'll take a look.
Thank you.
I will say, every winter after, basically snow and ice is over, we do have areas that we have to touch up, either, on the right of way, or, there is times where people's yards will end up having to, add a little loam and seed. But I'll take a look at that location and see if there's like an obvious reason why that's happening.
It's also Porter Street too, so thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, anything?
No questions for me,
All right.
no?
Thank you, Rich, for the presentation, and these are all up on 1 April at town meeting, right? It's part of the capital budget.
They are.
Thank you.
It's great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so Steve, you want to do a little intro here on Patriot Properties?
Yep, so, the first of the contracts is this, so this is a certification work plan, as you know, well, you may not know, but every 5 years, the Department of Revenue comes out. Let me back up. Every year, communities are supposed to revalue their properties and adjust them to the prior year's market sales. Every 5 years, it used to be every 3, but every 5 years, the Department of Revenue, Bureau of Local Assessments comes out and does, I guess you can call it like a more in-depth audit of your statistical analysis, data quality, and operational processes in the office. So this is to have, and this is pretty standard across the Commonwealth, communities will hire, there's a number of vendors in the Commonwealth that are certified to do this, will come out and help you put together the valuation tables, the analysis, reporting, and kind of package everything up so that the state can review. It's a ton of work. It's really more work than could be done, with just especially a small office like this. So, these companies will have 3 or 4 people that get involved, and it involves going out into the town, checking data quality, checking data points, checking sales, and then verifying that they're being analyzed and categorized appropriately.
So we actually have 2 contracts we're looking at now?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, in the end, the second one is, was brought to our attention when Wenham migrated to Patriot, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago. They opted not to transfer the sketches from the old software. So the state has always been very clear in that they won't certify you. Every property must have a sketch. So the sketch is basically like an architectural, not actually like a CAD drawing of the building footprint, where you can sub-designate, if it's if the initial footprint has a first floor, second floor, and that's how you calculate the square footage. The gross area, which includes porch space, screened-in porches, attached decks, things like that. So it's to be able to capture all the attributes of the structure and place a value on them that's derived from the market, and be able to fairly compare you to other houses. So that a house that has, is bigger, has a little bit more value than a house that's smaller. That's the basic level. Anyways, the sketches were never brought over, so we've been operating with no sketches for a number of years, and this quote is to bring those sketches over into the software so we can meet our certification standards for next year.
Questions, Peter?
I was actually at the assessors meeting this afternoon and heard all about this.
Okay.
Diane?
So, we have some sketches, because I've gone online and looked, and some are there.
Yes,
Not
all
all
the
of them are
sketches from the old property cards are still intact,
Okay.
but they didn't migrate to the new software where the calculations are made.
Interesting. So, and then my second question is, both of these are Patriot. These contracts are Patriot. You
Yeah.
said there were other vendors. Are we going with Patriot because that's the
Yeah,
software
I
that
mean,
we
it's,
use?
yeah, well, so they're professional services, similar to like an engineering firm, and we go through Patriot particularly because we use their software, and they know their software better, and the valuation tables, all the CAMA softwares, which is computer assisted mass appraisal, which is the name of the software that they use, has proprietary valuation tables in the background, so it can be difficult to have vendors that specialize in other software work in another vendor's software. So Patriot just makes the most sense in this situation.
Anything else, Peter? Diane?
Nope.
Then we need the motion.
So, should we do both of these separate? These 2 contracts? They're both the same company.
Yes.
You can, yeah.
All right. So I move that the Wenham Select Board adopt,
Vote to approve, it's up there.
vote to approve the Patriot Properties FY '24 certification work plan for
Second.
$2,000? No,
20,
$20,000, about
20,000.
$21,000.
All right.
I second?
Anything further?
No,
Roll call, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
yes.
Gary, yes.
I move that the Wenham Select Board vote to approve Patriot Properties sketch data entry consulting services for $3,600.
Second?
Anything else? The vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes.
Now I have a question. So the sketch data entry services, that's kind of a one-time thing once we move everyone over.
Yeah, so there is, to your point, there is a few sketches in there. Those are new structures.
Okay.
And the Todd and Terry are using the opportunity with this abatement process and their sales review to manually sketch all those properties, which actually is the best way to do it, because these ones will come across as like a computer flat file transfer, and then you got to go back and check. It doesn't always compute one-to-one, so you end up finding a bunch of errors. You know, so that's really why that's really where the cost is going through every sketch and ticking
So
and
they'll
tying.
do all those,
Yeah.
they'll do all that.
Yeah.
And then the certification work plan, that's just for this once every 5-year
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, it won't be right. So we're gonna move to, when it hasn't done in the past, we're gonna move to having an outside vendor do the valuations every year.
Mhm.
So it's a good, right, keep everybody honest type of thing. You can, kind of keep in two sets of books. They come in, do their values, the assessors have their values, and they come together. And, you got some checks and balances there. So we'll be doing that in the interim years as well. It's not nearly as expensive. It's probably $3 or $4 grand, not the 20 grand. But I think it's good practice, and a lot of
And
communities
so
do
if we
it for
keep
that
up with it,
reason.
doing that way, so 5 years from now, will it be the same type of price for them to do this, or
Yep.
because?
Yeah,
even though
there's a
we're
lot
up
of
to date?
work.
Okay.
I mean, whether they make a couple changes or 100 changes, the getting to the point of actually just adjusting the variables is pretty much the same.
Thank you.
And people can also, you can expect less of a wild swing up and down when you're doing it every year versus, having a number of years where things are held constant.
Right, right.
And then you're kind of forced to catch up with the market, up and down.
But all demanded and reviewed by the state, right?
All reviewed by the state. Yep.
All right. So, that's E and F. Is there a G?
No, you didn't
Yep.
vote to approve F.
We
Oh,
did a vote.
We didn't finish voting? Did I
Yes,
make
we
a
did
motion?
vote.
Did the certification?
Yeah, we
fail?
did
We
both.
did vote.
We did vote.
Yep,
Promise.
promise.
Oh, on the data entry consulting?
Yep.
You must have just fell asleep for a second there.
There are 2 votes for that.
Right,
Yep.
we did too.
Oh,
All right, so Roger's still on, perhaps? So our backup date, we're looking at 8 April, is that correct, Roger? That's your selection?
That was the date that the town administrator proposed to me, and I'm available. It's ultimately not the moderator's call at this point what a backup date should be. The moderator's authority in this respect is limited under, I believe, Chapter 39, Section 10A to just adjourn a town meeting without convening it in the event of a weather or other emergency covered by that statute.
So
But
hopefully we won't have the April 1st
I understand
blizzard
the
surprise.
intent here is to designate that day, April 8th, in the event that I do need to invoke Section 10A.
All right. Any questions on that, Diana, Peter?
So, yeah, I have a problem with April 8th as a backup date. It's Passover, and I think it's Easter weekend. I would rather do it during the week. I would like to propose And I think I thought of Tuesday the 4th, if we need to have a second date.
At what time?
Evening?
I
or-
would say 6:30 or 7.
I am not available on the evening of Tuesday, the 4th.
Why not?
Well, Roger's not available on the 4th. Are you available any weekday along that period?
So the issues with that week, I have a trial that's scheduled to start on April 3rd, and then I have a mediation scheduled for April 5th. April 6th, of course, is the annual election. So that week after we get past the weekend is tough. So it'd probably have to be the start of the following week. Perhaps Monday the 10th.
then?
Is that
Tuesday
school
the 10th?
vacation
What?
week?
No, I don't think so. School vacation.
No,
week.
school vacation week is the following week.
Patriots Day.
So, we thinking the 10th then? Evening of the 10th? I mean, the chances of this happening hopefully are very, very small, that we've had it
So
ever
that's the
canceled.
Monday, the first Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Not the first
No.
Monday, the week, so a full week after.
Right.
Yeah. So April 10th could be our backup date?
All right. That good with you, Roger?
That works for me.
All right.
Let's pencil it all in.
And I'll make myself available at whatever time, in the late afternoon or evening, as, we see fit, in the event that we need to, invoke section 10A.
All right.
So I move that the Wenham Select Board vote to approve Monday, April 10th, 2023, as a backup date for the annual town meeting, after I said April 10th, 2023, evening. I won't set a time, I'll just.
Second.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Steve, we can make that all right?
We'll make sure we can coordinate with the schools.
Yes, yeah, the
operate
school is
weekend.
the,
Yeah, I forgot
the
about
one
that.
catch there, is the site.
Yeah.
But we'll check that, and so far, we'll plan for the 10th.
If we can't, we'll come
Yeah,
back and.
all right.
Throw some basketball players out of there.
All right, so need a quick vote on this. The motion was made. Do we get a second?
Second?
And the roll call vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes,
Gary, yes. All right. In the very remote, hopefully, possibility.
right,
All right.
all right, schedule.
So, upcoming events, we got one more select board meeting this month on the 21st. Very important that people show up for the warrant hearing on the 27th, and then town meeting on the 1st. Anything to add, Peter?
Nope.
Diane?
I don't think so.
All right. Otherwise, your motion, Peter?
I move to enter into executive session
All right, oh, yes.
under MGL Chapter 30A and 21A2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator,
And not to return to open session.
and not to return to open session.
You got that right, Catherine? All right.
Second?
Roll call vote, Peter?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Gary, yes. All right, thank you, folks, tonight, and we're going off the air, HW Cam.